In this movie, I want to enter the exciting world of game objects and components by considering a practical example. In particular, I want to take this platform object here and make it move along by itself, carrying along the hero character. This is a pretty straightforward platform game mechanic, and I want to get started at achieving that in this movie, and we're going to continue and complete that exercise in the next movie. So to get started at creating this, I want to, for example, just demonstrate exactly the sort of behavior that I want. So if I select the platform object and then I shift select the player character here so that I'm selecting two objects at the same time, this object and this object. If I move the object along, you can see that from the inspector it's moving along on the Z-axis. I want this to move slowly along on its own steam here and carry the player character along with it. Now, to achieve this, several things need to be put in place. The first thing that I want to create is the moving behavior for the platform. Now, to achieve that, we're going to need to understand what components are and how they relate to game objects. So a game object, pretty straightforward really, is simply an object that exists in the scene. So here we have the main camera. This is a game object, and you can see from the inspector that it has many different properties. If I select the directional light, well, that's another game object, and it has these properties. And the platform object, well, that is yet another game object and has these properties. If the object is listed here inside the hierarchy panel, then it's a game object and it lives inside the scene. Now, every single game object that exists in the level has the transform component in common. And by that, I simply mean that the platform object has a transform component, the directional light has one, the main camera has one, the Ethan character has one as well. And this information simply encodes the position, the rotation, and the scale of the object in the scene. These values will differ between object to object, but every value or every object contains these values. So every single object has its own unique position in the level. And effectively, I want to animate the position of the platform component over time. But notice that except for the transform component, each of the objects differ quite tremendously in the different components they have. For example, the platform object has a cube mesh filter component, has a box collider component, and has a mesh renderer component. And we can contract and expand these components simply by clicking on the twirly icons. Notice also that if I select, for example, the directional light component, that sure, it's got a transform component, but it's also got an additional light component, and it doesn't have any of the other components that were attached to the platform object. In short, every single game object is effectively constituted by its components. Its combination of components controls how the object behaves. It defines what the object is. For this reason, when I select the platform object to make this move forwards in space at a continual speed, I'm going to need to add a component to it to do that. Now, Unity comes with a default component library. These are many different components that we can attach to objects to customize their behavior. For example, if I select the platform object here and I click on the Add Component button, I'm going to get access to the varied component library that is a part of this object. It actually appears outside the recording window, but it doesn't matter because I can select the platform object and I can access the exact same component library by moving to the menu here and choosing component, and we get all the different components available that we can attach to the object to make it behave in different ways. Now in this case, to make the object move forwards at a consistent speed, I want to move down to the scripts library here, and underneath this move to the utility section. Now if you don't see this utility item in the menu, it simply means that you need to import the standard asset packages. You can do this pretty simply, we've seen how to do this before, but you simply choose Assets, Import Package, and then simply choose Utility. In this case, you want to import the utility package. Previously, we imported prototyping and we also imported characters. This time, we need to import the utility package. I've already gone ahead and imported that package, and for this reason, on the component menu, when I choose Scripts and I choose Utility, we have all of these components that we need to attach. In this case, because we want the object to move on its own, I need to attach the Auto Move and Rotate script. So I'm going to select that component here, and that component is now attached to this selected platform object. I'm going to scroll down a little bit here to expand the move units per second field, and we have three values here, X and Y and Z, where we can specify the movement speed of the object in that particular axis. In this case, I want the platform object to move consistently along the z-axis. So I'm going to type in a value of 1 inside the z field. That means that this object is going to be moving 1 meter per second in the z-axis. I can easily test this out by switching to the game tab here. Oh, and actually notice in the game tab, my game camera is, well, it's quite a long distance away from the scene of the action here. So actually I want to reposition the game camera. And in fact, I want to reposition the game camera so it pretty much matches up with the view that we have in the viewport here. That's really easy to do. To do that, all I have to do is to select the main camera object and then choose Game Object and then select Align with View. You can see from the camera preview that the game camera here has aligned with the scene view. And in fact, if I switch to the game tab, you can see the views are now aligned. So I'm going to press the play button on the toolbar. And when I do this, the platform begins moving, and it's moving consistently because we have attached that new component, the auto move and rotate, and it's animating the platform at 1 meter per second. So that is excellent. However, our work here is not yet done. There is a problem, and we'll see what that is in the next movie.